Welcome. I'm delighted to gavel in this first hearing and briefing of the Oversight and Investigations Subcommittee. Today's event is entitled Update on Detainee Transfers from Guantanamo. Before we proceed with the hearing, I would like to emphasize how honored I am to serve as Oversight and Investigations Subcommittee Chairwoman in this Congress. This subcommittee undertakes important work for the Committee of Armed Services. It strives to ensure that the policies and programs of the Department of Defense are properly formulated and implemented in the most efficient manner. Previous Congresses have recognized the critical role of standalone oversight and investigations. In fact, it is essential I recognize a former HASC chairman and my predecessor, the late Ike Skelton, who insisted on establishing this subcommittee when he became chairman of the Armed Services Committee during the 110th Congress. I'm also pleased to acknowledge that Chairman Joe Heck, who preceded me in this position last year, returns to the subcommittee as a sitting member, and I look forward to his continued involvement and insights. And I also look forward to working with Ranking Member Spear, as well as Chairman Thornberry, Ranking Member Smith, and all members of the subcommittee in the 114th Congress. So before continuing with my open remarks for the hearing, I'd like to recognize my colleague and ranking member of the subcommittee, Ms. Jackie Spear, for any welcoming remarks that she may wish to offer.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and I too am privileged to serve with you as ranking member of this committee. I really think that there is no higher calling for all of us as members of Congress than to do rigorous investigations and oversight, and I look forward to working with you and recognizing that together in a bipartisan fashion we can address very thorny issues that come before us and hopefully come up with construction solutions. I yield back.
Yes, thank you. So as we turn to the subject matter at hand, I would like to state up front that we will not tolerate any disturbances. These proceedings, including verbal disruptions, standing or holding of signs. Appreciate your cooperation in this matter. So this afternoon, we have two senior officials appointed by the Obama administration charged with the responsibility to oversee the closure of Guantanamo Bay detention facility. Our witnesses will provide testimony on their roles and the interagency process for transferring detainees from the detention facility to other countries. We will then adjourn to a classified setting where we will be joined by an official from the Defense Intelligence Agency, in addition to our two witnesses, who will elaborate further on the interagency transfer process. In light of the statements we are about to receive from the witnesses and the type of details which are primarily classified, I ask unanimous consent that members hold all questions for the witnesses until the classified briefing. Hearing no objections, so ordered. According to information from Joint Task Force Guantanamo, the military organization that operates the detention facility, their responsibility is to detain unprivileged enemy belligerents. The Joint Task Force material explains that the detention of unprivileged enemy belligerents in wartime is, quote, a matter of security and military necessity and has long been recognized as legitimate under international law. The Joint Task Force further notes that detainees provide the United States with important intelligence that helps prevent future attacks. General James Mattis, a retired commander of U.S. Central Command, echoed this in testimony on January 27th to the Senate Armed Services Committee. He called for consistency in our detention policy and argued for the need to hold belligerents until the end of the fighting so they could not harm others. Despite the dedication of the men and women who created and operate Gitmo today, any real or imagined misstep or procedural lapse from a decade ago has been sensationalized by our terrorist enemies. We must not allow them to succeed in inventing a narrative about Gitmo and using this narrative to lead the Gitmo's abolition. Let me be clear. Terrorists bombed the USS Cole before the detention center at Guantanamo existed. Terrorists hijacked 3 airplanes and wrought havoc in the United States on September 11, 2001, before Gitmo was created. The Taliban established their brutal regime in Afghanistan before Gitmo was built. Indeed, it was because of the death and destruction caused by these terrorists that Gitmo came into being. The crazed fanatics who comprise the Islamic State do not exist because of Gitmo. Certainly it's not true that if the facility ceased to exist, these brutal murders would renounce their violent ideology. It is wrong to suggest that because the Islamic State dresses their victims in orange jumpsuits, The United States bears even an incidental responsibility for the Islamic State's barbaric actions. It is also wrong to use this as a justification to shutter Gitmo. Indeed, recent events should suggest greater, not lesser, caution in moving detainees out of Gitmo. Yet, based on information provided by the Department of Defense, 33 detainees have been transferred from Guantanamo in the past 11 months, including 15 transfers just this past December alone. What is also shocking is that of the 33 transferred in the past 11 months, 7 of these detainees were among 48 recommended for continued detention by the Obama administration. 5 of those 7 detainees were the senior-most Taliban leaders sent to Qatar in May 2014. Recent news reports have suggested that the intelligence community believes one of these individuals may have returned to the fight. In our classified session, we are going to receive a briefing on the Taliban 5 and learn what the United States government currently assesses about them. 2 other detainees recommended for continued detention by the administration were transferred to Kuwait and Saudi Arabia in recent months. I expect to learn more about the process that resulted in the transfer of the 7 Gitmo detainees that the President's own advisors recommended remain behind bars. Because the administration has often ignored recommendations yielded internally from the system it established, it seems hypocritical to malign legislation that seeks to improve and make more sound the transfer recommendation process. Furthermore, of those 15 detainees transferred in December, 4 were sent to Afghanistan, where, of course, the war still rages and U.S. forces are deployed, despite the administration's claim that combat operations have ceased. 6 other detainees were sent to Uruguay, where, according to press reports, the Uruguayan defense minister described them as, quote, totally free men who will not be restricted in any way, unquote. I look forward to today to learning if there's any basis for these reports, which, if true, are deeply disturbing. The remaining 26 of the 33 detainees transferred over the past 11 months were deemed to be transferable by the Presidential Task Force, but the task force noted nonetheless that a decision to approve a detainee for transfer does not equate to a judgment that the government lacked authority to hold the detainee. Even with the stated authority, the detainees were sent out of Gitmo. I'm also eager to learn about the transfer arrangements for the detainees that fell into this category. This subcommittee, like the full Committee on Armed Services, will continue to vigorously oversee these and related issues. I look forward to the opportunity to mark up the legislation sponsored by Representative Walorski and co-sponsored by Representative Scott. I now turn to the ranking member for her opening remarks for today's